All right, guys, let's show you the new house. Here it is. We just got this right next door to where I'm currently living with my family. You know? My brother's here right now. Went on the market and we just had to snatch it up. Really big front lawn. There's a pretty extensive thoroughfare on the other side of that wall, but it's not too much of an issue. It's not super loud. And you know, when that house goes on the market right there, I plan on buying it too. We're trying to make a compound in our court. So, you know. This is the foyer. My brother's family is moving in right now, or starting to. They're letting some air in. Here's the kitchen. It's a nice wooden sliding door put in there by the owners 2 owners ago. Over here is the mud room where you do laundry and stuff. All right. This unit actually came with the house. Here's the garage. Here we are. It used to be a daycare, so that's why there's carpet in it. That's obviously where the living room's gonna be. I was told my brother Alan is here right now, but I don't see him anywhere. This is just a closet right here. And this is the master bedroom. See, they have their own bathroom in here. It's a very good bathroom too. Very similar to my mom and dad's in their master bedroom, though they have a much bigger closet. I was telling them this closet could actually be converted into a makeshift sauna if they wanted to. Hi, guys. New appliances. My brother has a refrigerator that he and his wife just bought, so they're gonna bring it over here, put it there. Here's for all the hookups for the television and stuff. They have the same fireplace as we have next door, except they have a mantle. We don't. So, I'll show you the backyard in a second. Here's the primary bathroom for everybody else. Some nice detailing to it. Some tall ceilings. And here's one of the bedrooms. Has a nice ceiling fan. See, they're just moving in, so they've only just started to get stuff over here. All right, there's another closet right here. Another bedroom. Some black and white detail going on. Interesting curtain there. Nice closet. The previous owners had to move out pretty quick, but they honestly left the property in very good condition. They treated it very, very well. Then you got the 4th bedroom right here. Much smaller than the other ones, but more than sufficient. It'll definitely do the trick. You know, since you got all this stuff right here, they don't even really need to have a dresser if they don't want to. Another nice ceiling fan and a hook over there for any number of things. You can probably even put a punching bag in here if you want. AC. Another really nice AC right there. Now let's show you the backyard. Oh, look at that ceiling fan. Another really nice one. They have a doggy door, which their doggo Tux is still small enough to fit through it, but when he gets full grown, he's probably not going to fit through it anymore. Here's the backyard. It's actually quite large. Not as large as ours over there, but still very large. In fact, I would even say that including the side yards, it's bigger than the yard that they currently have or had in the house that they're moving out of right now. There's an RV access right here, put in a few owners ago, and an RV access door. It's a very nice door. It really is. Very well built. And of course, their trash cans right there. They could do all sorts of things with this backyard, whatever they want. Put a trampoline like the previous owners had, a doughboy pool if they really wanted to. They don't have to, because we're actually going to put a door on that fence over there so that we can access each other's backyards by going through it. And they don't even need to have a pool because we have one. So they have a brand new AC. It's a really nice one too. They will have no trouble whatsoever keeping their house cool. They actually just had the AC replaced literally about 2 weeks ago in the rental in which they're living right now. And then you have this, a nice, well-built shed that the previous owners left. And Alan is going to use this to store his, obviously his tools and all that. But if you really wanted to, you could even turn this into an ADU. It's big enough and nice enough. Just put some insulation and air conditioner and all that stuff, and it could be. Power it. Either way, it's a pretty nifty little thing here. Look at this doorknob. Pretty cool, huh? Let me close that. Yeah, right over here. That's Baseline Road. You see? It's no big deal. It's gonna be nice having them living right next door to us. So, oh, that's what that is. I was wondering what this was sitting on the grass. It's actually the listing. You see it right here. We got a little bit better price than that. Yeah, there you go. I didn't show you their pantry, but yeah, they got a nice pantry here too. It's so open in this house. The floor plan is so open. There's so many things that they could do with this. Like this little area right here is actually going to be given a curtain right across the roof, right? The ceiling, whatever. And it's going to be its own little bedroom. Somebody's going to be living in there. It's not as much privacy as you'd like, because you need to have a full-blown wall if you want it to be private, but it's okay. It still does the trick. And you could, if you really wanted to, do the same thing with this area. But this is really kind of like a foyer, or a room where you bring people in. I forget what it's called, but you know what that type of room is. So there you go, guys. That's the new house. We got it literally about a week ago. Well, a couple days less than a week ago. So, I'm excited. Love y'all. Peace. Hey YouTube, pick my channel to grow. Pick me. Me. Pick my channel to get views on my videos. Pick me. Pick me. I'm gonna be a pick me for YouTube. Pick me, pick me, pick me. Oh, and here's my doggos. They know that word. They know that word. Okay? This is bliss. Having my doggos that just lay near me and hang out. They just love it. You know? Pick me, YouTube. Pick me. Pick me. Pick me. There's no rhyme or reason to how a channel succeeds unless you're heating them. So pick me. I want to succeed. I need some way to make money. Let me make money. Let me make money, YouTube. Let me make money. I need money. I want money. Pick me. Pick me. Pick me. But in all seriousness, it really doesn't matter how hard you work or anything like that. YouTube can decide who they want to succeed and who they don't, unilaterally. Do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad? I think it's bad. Because there should be no kingmaker in such a way, or queenmaker, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It's not simply if other people want to watch your videos. They always say that, but it's a lie. And you know it is too. So, just ask them directly. If YouTube is going to stay the biggest platform in the world and we can't do anything about them being in that position, then ask them. Why not? Pick me, YouTube. Pick me. Pick me. Pick me. Pick me. I want to be a pick me. I want to pick me. So, pick me. By the way, I forgot to mention, the next book on the list is A Confederacy of Dunces. And it's basically a comedy. So far, it's really good. I'm not going to give you a review of it right now, obviously, because it's, I just barely started it. But that's the book that's next on the list. What do you guys want me to read next? If you have any preferences, any desires, let me know, and I'll take them into consideration. Barring any other limiting factors, like if I don't have another book I personally want to read or nobody else requests that, then I'll do it. So. How would you define superhuman? Welcome to day 214. Until I'm a YouTube millionaire? I think that's what it is. I'm doing a little bit off the cuff right now. Just sort of chilling out in my bed, talking with you guys. Why? Just because when you've got stuff you want to talk about and you have the energy to do it, it's so easy to just post videos. It's not hard. Giggity. It's really not. All you gotta do is turn on your recording device, whether it's your phone, an actual camera, a webcam, whatever it is, turn it on, start recording. And if you have even an inkling of life experience and or intelligence or capacity, you're going to have something valuable that you say. You know what happens when I write in my journal? And this actually happened to my girlfriend Sonia a couple days ago. She was telling me about how she was writing in her diary, as she's one to do on occasion, just like I am. But
when I do it, and this happened to her, my journal entries go from journal entries to just straight up essays. Why? Because your brain just starts thinking. You know? At least that's what happens with people with very fast minds, with very capable minds, very powerful minds. And she has a lot of horsepower in hers. We've talked about it on occasion, actually. But that happens to me too. It is not difficult, not even remotely. Or at least, let's say, if you are to become a YouTuber or whatever, and you want to post on a consistent basis, then it really should be seamless for you. It should not be painful. And for me, speaking my thoughts has never been painful. Ever. Never been difficult. They just flow out of my mouth and flow out of my mind. And some of them, I'm sure you've seen, are without filter, generally speaking. But I asked the question, how do you define superhuman? And part of it is what I'm talking about here, with high mental capacities. So, there are many ways you could. And there are also so few ways that it could be seen or accepted. You see, the thing is, our egos tend to get in the way if we're trying to find a superhuman. And we might know that we have superhuman capacities in XYZ places, but we don't want to talk about it. Therefore, nobody's going to know about it, or very few people will, out of humility. Sometimes it's false humility, sometimes it's real humility. But then we have other people not wanting to talk about your capacities because they're jealous, or they don't want to puff up your ego or whatever. The problem is we so rarely can look at it through an objective lens, without emotions, like a doctor would. And that's part of what psychology was trying to do when the IQ test was developed, like the standard IQ test that you can take that isn't really, or doesn't have a very dramatic time component to it. By the way, if you want to figure out what your IQ is, go to queendom.com. That's QUEENDOM.com. And take their classical IQ test, and it'll give you as close to your accurate IQ as you can find anywhere. Because it's a classical IQ test. It's minimally time limited. Usually takes about 70 minutes to complete or so. That's how you can determine it. So, intelligence is one way. Another way is sheer volume, density, and quality of productions. How much output and throughput you have. Throughput meaning the rate at which you actually make the output, and output being what you make. So let's say somebody makes one video a day on YouTube, as an example. But they do it every single day. Now, and they do that for like 80 years until they pass away, right? And they never miss a day, not a single day. So they have a prodigious output, not necessarily a prodigious throughput, because it's only one video a day. But let's say they're posting 10 videos a day, or 50, all right, on 5 or 6 different YouTube channels, single-handedly. And they're single-handedly learning how to work the editing software, the broadcasting software, the streaming software, navigating the landmines of the YouTube platform in words and stuff like that, navigating the throttling, the goalpost moving. Talking about myself here, at least from my experience. Then you have physical capacities. Let's say that a superhuman, this is the most obvious one, right? Superhuman could, I don't know, bench press 600 pounds, deadlift 1,000, just as an example. Or could run a marathon in 2 hours and 20 minutes, which there was actually a guy that was in one of my live streams talking about how he was a marathon runner he had just finished a 2:23 marathon. That's Olympic level, or near enough to get to the Olympics. So, physical capacities, wisdom. You have intellect, what I was talking about before, and then you have wisdom. You know, how you've actually learned and grew from your experiences. Let's just use those. So if a person is 1 in a billion in their level of intelligence, does that make them superhuman? I would submit to you that very much yes, it does. Because there's only 8 people on the planet statistically that are near that person's level of intelligence. As an example, pardon me. If a person produces 50 videos and learns 5 or 6 different trades single-handedly, does that put them in a high productive capacity? Does that make them superhuman? Prodigious output. Or say they have 10 different ventures that they're working on. I would say that it does. Look at Elon Musk. He is extremely intelligent and operates several multi-billion-dollar companies and is worth $500 billion, almost. So, at least in those regards, he is a superhuman. Let's look at strongman. The world's strongest man typically deadlifts around 1,000 to 1,100 pounds. Can shoulder press a log. It's like one of the workouts that they do, or one of the competitions that they do. That's like 300 plus pounds. Crazy amounts of weight. These are people that are like, just look at Brian Shaw as an example. He's 6'8", and at his peak he was 440 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. He might have been even bigger than that. But because he's so big, so tall, his frame can fill out and he doesn't get morbidly obese necessarily. The numbers show that when he was at that weight, he was like 27% body fat, which is really high. But for what he was doing, it was needed. You know? I would submit to you that he is a superhuman. Very much so. If you have any one of those things, at least in that regard, you are a superhuman. But then let's look at this. What if you have endured traumas that would cause a normal person to unalive or self-delete themselves? Any one of them with a high degree of certainty. And you endured, say, a dozen of them. And you came out more loving, more compassionate, more empathetic after it all. Not resentful, not morose, not angry at the world, but wanting to fix it, wanting to help people, wanting to give people everything that you've got remaining. Even if your body is broken. I would say that is very superhuman. Very. And if you're the superhuman, it's very difficult to say it yourself because of the ego, right? You can only bear it out through the objective facts and see if others would define that as superhuman. So this is why they say don't compare yourself to others, but at the same time, there has to be some standard that the world sees as a certain cloth. If they don't have a standard, what are you striking? Sure, you'll strike your own standard, but if they don't accept that standard, then you don't fit into that world. And if you don't fit into that world, why are you even there? So let's say you're 1 in a billion intelligence, and you've endured those kinds of traumas, and you're physically in the top 1% of fitness, even with a broken body, even with having to face those traumas that the demons have been throwing at you constantly. That's pretty fucking superhuman. If nobody else is going to tell that to you, have the confidence to believe in it yourself. It is superhuman. It is. And so many of you out there that watch my videos have endured so many things in your lives, have so many capacities just like this, and you still are loving and compassionate just like I say. You think you're not superhuman? You are. You are. I would know. All right. That's what I got for today. Love you all. Peace. I've got a compromise for you, BI. Welcome to day 215 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. I got this from my girlfriend Sonia. She lives in Ireland. So they have something that is called, something similar to what we get for welfare recipients here in the United States if we apply for it when we have children. It's a child rearing credit, right? So raising a child, you get like $500 a month or something, okay? Unfortunately, that is an incentive, a negative incentive that increases the number of people on welfare, increases the number of people in low-income situations and lifestyles. However, Sonia was telling me about how they do it in Ireland. In Ireland, they give a €150 per month child benefit to everybody. There is no means testing. And the only way you don't get the child benefit, if you have children, is if you opt out of it. It's €150 per month, which isn't a huge amount, but in this day and age, any amount that you can get helps. So, a compromise for UBI, and something that will also help our collapsing birth rates. You take that concept of UBI and instead apply it to a child credit with no means testing, just like Europe does it. We can do the same thing that we do for our welfare recipients that have children and give it to everybody that has children. Never, ever, ever, ever any means testing. UBI was intended to not have any means testing as well, I'm not a fan of UBI. I don't like the idea, but I am a fan of having an increase in population of all different types of people. The best types of people will take advantage of it. And then everybody else that doesn't want kids won't have them. That's your compromise for UBI. And honestly, I think it's the best path. And I think it's the path that we were all trying to get us to go down. We just needed somebody to put together the pieces and talk about it. President Trump, if you're listening to me, I know you're not because I'm just one guy, I'm not that important. Or anybody else that has a way of getting in touch with him. I don't think there are going to be very many people that disagree with this. Okay? The Catholics definitely won't disagree with it because they tend to have tons and tons and tons of kids. Same with the Mormons. 10 kids, $500 a month per kid. That's $5,000 a month to take care of your children. More than enough. And it scales. So the more you get to take care of your kids, you can actually bulk buy things and stuff like that and make it even easier. Excuse me. It's just a good idea all around. The reason we have women getting into the workforce nowadays and not having families is because one of them, they've been told to be boss babes and that's the way to go. Another one is everything is so goddamn expensive nowadays. Just so expensive. And it's not getting any less expensive. Our debts are increasing dramatically. And to that point, the only means test being that you have children and the number of children that you have, that will prevent a completely universal basic income being given to miscreants who literally are just a bane to society, doing nothing for anybody. So there you go. Single policy bill could get this taken care of. Probably written down in 2 or 3 pages. Definitely better than the Green New Deal that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez created several years back, which was like 4 pages or something like that. Something akin to Dr. Ron Paul's End the Fed bill that he would annually bring up. It doesn't have to be a gigantic bill, and I strongly recommend that we don't make it one. We just make it a single issue, which is the way the bills should be anyway. And this will be a humongous positive change that only those who do not want humanity to have more children will disagree with. Only those who genuinely are anti-human would disagree with it. So pretty much just the Democrats, or their colloquial name, the Demon Rats. So there you go, guys. Single issue bill, child credit. $500 per month per child for everyone. No means testing other than if you have a child. Love you all. Peace. The meek shall inherit the earth. Welcome to day 217 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. That's my dog. So what does that term actually mean? It's been talked a lot about recently in the masculine spheres online and elsewhere. A lot on the spheres of, masculine social media and stuff like that. But it is an often misinterpreted phrase, something that is very much emphasized in the Bible. The meek shall inherit the earth. So misinterpreted, in fact, that it has led to the very unhealthy and unsafe dichotomy between even political parties, where weak people think simply by virtue of their weakness that they are virtuous and that they are the ones that should be followed. Weakness, being harmless, is not what meekness means. Meekness, as a person such as Jordan Peterson has made very clear, and thankfully it's spreading a lot, as it should, is being strong, physically disciplined, but keeping your sword sheathed unless absolutely necessary to take it out and do war. There's a meme of Venom, the comic character Venom, and he's got a Catholic cross on his chest, and the meme says, "You need to be on a leash because you're not a good person," and he says, "Yes, that's right. I am a psychopath without that leash." This is absolutely true with us as humans writ large. We think that we're higher and more evolved and above barbarism and instinct. But just as the Joker said on Batman the Dark Knight, when push comes to shove, we'll eat each other, barring any other frame of reference. I added that last part. Without that underlying code that you follow, when push comes to shove, you will say to yourself, just like Dr. Mann did on the movie Interstellar, "Nobody's come to save me, so I'm going to save myself." That's why he tried to unalive everybody on the crew that came to his planet in the movie Interstellar and escaped just for himself, because the monkey instinctual mentality came back. He didn't have an underlying virtue. The meek shall inherit the earth. You become strong to be able to do battle if/when it is necessary. And we live in a hellish world. There's going to come a point where it will be necessary. Maybe not in your lifetime, but probably. Every generation that's on the planet today has experienced some type of war or global conflict, from the stuff happening in Ukraine and Russia, to Iran and Israel, to the Cold War, to the Syrian War, to the Gulf War, to the Korean War, the Vietnam War, World War I, World War II. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And if you don't have judicious, proper judgment with that power, which is what meekness is, then the whole of the world will collapse, because you're chaotic and you're unwise with that power. The meek do not actually have any tested morality. They're simply harmless. Harmless does not mean that you are meek. Harmless means that you are ineffectual. It means that you are incapable. Meekness means that you are capable, but you are careful. And now let's get to the modern day. Let's look at what happened on January 6th. What do you think the deep state expected to happen? The general public, or at least the halls of our government, were being wrestled back from said deep state, and the patriots were starting to get in control. And frankly, at that point, they were. So, in a last-ditch effort, the deep state threw up their trump card, threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at us, and frankly just flat out stole the election, expecting us to stand up and fight back in a untempered and foolish manner. We almost did, but we threaded that needle. On January 6th, there was just enough of a protest for us to prove to everyone, to the world, that we really do believe in our underlying principles of our government and our people and our religious and spiritual philosophies and theologies and all that. But at the same time, we're going to try to fix it even now. And we're not going to let it collapse on itself. We kept our swords sheathed. But we showed a little bit of the steel. Put it back in. Then we went back to work. Had we not had that meekness at that critical point in our history, it'd be utter chaos right now. The things happening in Russia and Ukraine, that would have gone to a full-blown nuclear war. Iran and Israel, same thing. We would be in full-blown World War III right now, with probably a third of the world already perished, had we not kept our swords sheathed. You can't see that timeline, but we survived. We're still here. And I want you to stand up proud, because that was you. You did it. Holy fuck, you did it. And I salute you, all of you. That was heroic. The logical conclusion to what have happened, had we even stepped out of line a centimeter, is obvious now. All right, guys. That's what I got for you today. Stand proud. We're here today because you had meekness. Love y'all. Peace. Good morning, guys. Welcome to day 218 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. I wanted to give a quick addendum on the child credit that I was talking about in my last video. Now, if you didn't watch my last video, basically what I was discussing was a way to incentivize people to have children in the Western world. Ireland already does something like this. They have a $150 or euro credit that they give to a family that has a child, and it's 150 euro for each child that you have, adding up to, I think there is no upper limit number of children that you can have and still get that credit. And also in that country, there is no means test, so everybody gets it. The only way you don't get it is if you intentionally opt out of it. So I was thinking of some addendums to this. The first one is, if we do want to have means testing, then an intelligent way to do it would be to give it to only couples that are married in a court of law. Now, I don't like having the government coming in to decide what to do with that money and to decide anything to do with a marriage. I don't think it's a good idea. But if we're living in a biblical country, a country that actually follows Christian morality, then it can be made to work. So this is a slippery slope, and it has been made to lead to some very bad conclusions in the modern era. Just look at the no-fault divorce issue in California, the state in which I live. It's utterly disgusting. But if it's a biblical way of marrying one another, then divorce is like the last option. It's there just in case there's a few things that happen, like abuse or infidelity, etc. There's like 4 different things in the Catholic Church that are reasonable reasons to get divorced. And I can't name them off the top of my head, but I just gave you 2 of them. So anyway, the first one can be that the couple is married. Now, this works either way. It prevents miscreants from having metric crap tons of kids and not taking care of them. And it also means that high wealth individuals won't get the tax benefit if they don't want to marry somebody, but they want to have their child, because they don't need the tax benefit. So they're not really worried about it. Now, this is just an idea that I'm throwing out there. There are tons of other factors involved that I know I'm not even thinking about at the moment. But the biggest thing I wanted to add to my previous discussion was this. If we incentivize the increase in population through this program, then what it'll do is it will prevent the entitlement programs from collapsing. Because as it stands in the United States, really the Western world writ large, we are kind of in a demographic collapse. So if you look at the demographic graphs, the way they're supposed to be, they're kind of supposed to be like a pyramid, right? So at the top of that pyramid are like the 80-plus-year-olds, and then you got like the 30 to 50-year-olds, and then you got the youngins, like everybody who's 20 and below or whatever, right? And that's the highest cohort, the largest cohort. That's the way the demographic pyramid is supposed to work. However, if you look at countries like Japan, which is just apocalyptic, the way their population is decreasing, it's more like this. So they have no tax base. It's rather appropriate to have it structured that way for a proper visual, because those younger generations are going to be building and producing, not just adding to the tax base in order to support things like Social Security and medical programs and XYZ, a bunch of stuff, entitlements that you can think of, but also because they're going to add to the overall ingenuity of the world. The inventions that will come about that we can't even fathom right now, if we have the people alive to do it, are beyond comprehension, right? So Leonardo da Vinci, one of the smartest human beings to have ever lived. It's purported that his IQ was probably around 220. He was a fully blown polymath. There were so many different things he did. He was an artist, he was an inventor, so much stuff. And his level of intelligence came about once every 20 billion people, right? Or something to that effect, because you got to take it into consideration. Over the course of the entirety of human civilization, there have been approximately 100 billion human beings. There's 8 billion alive today, but over the course of all 10,000 whatever years, there's been about 100 billion. And it took that many people for a person like him to come about. Well, if we have a bigger population, we're going to have more people like that. It's just going to happen. And the Pareto principle, Price's law, dictates that the more of those people you have, the massively more productive your civilization will become. Unless you're intentionally trying to blockade said individuals for some reason or another. And the dysgenic way that we do it in the modern era is blockading those people. So if we want to get away from the dysgenics and allow for those truly fantastic capacities to come about, we need more people. It's that simple. We are nowhere near a population, an overpopulated Earth. We're not. I don't care what they tell you. We're not. Because if all else fails, guess what we can do? We can create vertical farms. And therefore we have basically or nearly infinite space. 3 dimensions is much larger in surface area than 2 dimensions. It just obviously makes sense. But in addition to that, we're getting ready to go to Mars and start colonizing there. We will colonize the moon. It's gonna happen. And because it's so close to us, it'll be one of the first options we have for terraforming. There's not much in situ stuff there in terms of the materials you need to terraform the planet, but we can just bring it from Earth. We could literally just send rockets up to the moon carrying a payload of 100 tons of water and just launch it to the surface and keep doing that over and over because it's so close. With Starship having 100 flights per day, which they're hoping to do eventually, it becomes more and more probable. And if I can even conceptualize this right now, then somebody's going to figure out how to do it in the future. In the movie Star Trek, or the series Star Trek Next Generation, they had terraformed the moon. So it's right there. It's our closest celestial neighbor. It's our companion. There is no excuse for us not terraforming it, and then terraforming Mars, etc. We're going to proliferate and expand throughout the cosmos. And we start with our own solar system. We need more people in order to do that. So we must incentivize. Get out of this dysgenic loop that we're trying to force ourselves into, or rather the deep state and the cabal was trying to force us into because they wanted us to be slaves, and encourage natalism. Be pro-natalism. Have kids, as many as possible. I am so tired of super genius people like Chris Langan and his wife being among the very smartest people to have ever lived and not having a single child. Not a one. Not one child. And I don't know about the smartest guy in the world who has been talking about Christ and how Christ is king and all that stuff, and thank God he's doing that. I'm so grateful for him. I don't know if he has any children or not because I haven't looked into his personal life, but it'd be truly a tragic thing if he does not. It's just, we have to look at the brass tacks here. No, the objective reality here. We want more brilliant people to be alive. It's just that simple. So this is a way to do it. They don't have an excuse anymore to not have kids. Now, we could have no means testing, like I was talking about, or we could have marriage means testing, but it must not be something that is only given to welfare recipients, which is the way it is in the United States nowadays. Now, a low ball estimate is that it costs about $100,000 US to raise a child from 0 to 18. It's actually more, probably around 300,000. Now, I did the math, and that comes to about $500 per month to $1,500 per month per child. We got to start somewhere. If we start at 300, fine. If we start at 500, fine. But one way or another, we're going to make up for that, all the money that's going into that and the expenses of it, with all the money that we're getting, all the productivity that we're getting from the new people, and the fact that Social Security and other entitlement programs won't collapse. I mean, Ireland's onto something. I do not like a universal basic income, but this is pretty cool because we're going to have more people. So even if we did have a universal basic income, it would still possibly work because we would have more of a base from which to draw. So there's your addendum today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Love y'all. Peace. To be a Stoic. Welcome to day 219 and tell me YouTube millionaire. The defining characteristic of a Stoic is to be supremely unbothered by whatever adversities you are facing in your life. For example, let's say we talk about my laptop and the computer that I had before it, which was one of the best computers that are on the market, or was on the market back in 2022, I believe it was. It's got like a 3090, an RTX 3090 in it, 24 gigs, an i9 13900K, 32 gigs of RAM, just a humongously powerful desktop. And it kept on fault restarting. Nobody could figure out why. I took it to Best Buy and spent hundreds of dollars trying to get it fixed. Thousands, actually. Until eventually I sold it to my brother and he's not having any issues with it anymore. And I'm happy about that. It did bother me at the time, but just enough to where basically I could prove that it mattered. That I didn't make a foolish purchase, one that had no effect on me whatsoever. It did have a little bit of one. Just enough. And then my laptop. One of the best laptops that you can get. At least it was back in 2021. It's got an RTX 3060 12 gig in it, which is still an incredibly good video card. An i7, a Core i7, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD for its storage, and the fan went on the fritz. This is a known issue with the Aero laptops, but it is irreparable without spending hundreds of dollars to send it in to get it fixed. It only happens in a handful of Aero laptops, but I happened to draw the short straw and got the one that had a bad fan. Back to back. 2 extremely expensive purchases of mine that are flawed. And this is after I spent $10,000 on buying laptops for the rest of my family. This is several years ago, but these laptops are still incredibly powerful and incredibly capable. And the way I see it is you're going to spend 90% of your day on the computer anyway. You might as well make it a fun experience, an enjoyable one. Especially for millennials, we're all about desktops and laptops. And also a lot of people like using consoles. I'm not a huge fan of them, but a lot of people do like them. They're really a one-stop shop if you want to have a multimedia device that'll do everything for you, including cook pancakes. Just kidding. So, my desktop popped, basically. After thousands of dollars of trying to get it repaired, it wouldn't work. My laptop, the fan is messed up, and now the actual running of the operating system seems to be glitching out, which shouldn't be happening, but there we are. The money that I would have to make up for these huge expenses if I actually had a job that was requisite to my capacities and I was paid what I was really worth would be absolutely nothing. But because I'm put into a kind of pseudo-starvation mode, made to live like a leech, getting only money from disability payments and not making out ahead on my real estate at all because one thing after another keeps piling up, adds on top of all the things that would cause you to be supremely irritated, supremely bothered. What makes you a stoic? And Stoicism and Christianity are not mutually exclusive, by the way. I would submit to you even that aside from saving souls, Jesus is a Stoic. He's supremely unbothered by anything other than saving humanity. And the other stuff can burn away. He doesn't care. So they're not mutually exclusive. It harkens back to Thich Nhat Hanh's phrase, "You are here," which is a Buddhist mentality. Interestingly enough, the Buddhist mentality and Stoicism go together. They really do. Buddhism, you're basically trying to dissipate all care outside of your nirvana so that you can get up to heaven. That might be a Taoist idea, but they go together. Stoicism, being supremely unbothered by anything that does not affect your philosophy and your objective and or mission in life. Christianity, being supremely unbothered by anything that does not affect your ability to save souls. So where I stand in my life, is I am supremely unbothered by the fact that these things are trying to get in my way, because I am still accomplishing my objective, which is to save souls. However, they've dramatically, hugely reduced my efficacy, how many people I can affect. So rather than affecting 10,000 people a day, I affect maybe 5, maybe 10. I'm still getting the mission accomplished, but I'm only getting a handful of people. So I say to, for example, YouTube, pick me. Pick my channel to be boosted. Because essentially that's the only way you can succeed on YouTube. Either that, or you do something that will just grab everybody's attention immediately. But if you're trying to talk philosophy, most people don't want to talk about heady topics. It takes too much energy, mentally and even physically. That mental exhaustion that comes from trying to exert your brain leads you to need to go to sleep, get some shut-eye. I know from experience, when I was younger and I knew how to, and I didn't know quite as well how to temper how I talked with people, I always made them tired. Always did. I'm thinking of a fellow Air Force officer's wife when I was in Del Rio, Texas. She had gotten herself a hot dog truck because she wanted to start a hot dog truck business, right? Street food. And we were at my house because I was renting there. I happened to get a house off of base. I was blessed in that regard. But at the same time, it's a little bit of a curse, but that's a side point. And we were just talking about philosophy and stuff just because she wanted to chat. And she started getting tired and started yawning and all that. She was totally alert beforehand. Not a dumb lady, by the way. She's a college-educated lady. Very intelligent, very nice. But even so, I didn't know how to temper it at that point. So I went from 0 to 500 miles per hour in a split second, and she probably could go maybe 120 without stressing her engine. But I went to 500 miles per hour. So, all of this to say, yeah, I'm not a pilot in the military anymore, not a pilot for the Customs and Border Patrol, which I had applied to before COVID happened. I'm not a pilot in the private sector, even though I'm obviously very qualified. Even with my disabilities, I can still do it if they would hire me, but they won't. I have my electrical engineering master's degree, which by itself, if you want to look it up, see the details of that. A person with my background, my education, I should be able to easily get an electrical engineering position that pays $150,000 a year. But nobody would hire me. They want to hire H-1B visas instead for 10% of that price. And for piloting, they're all about DEI. If I were to try again, they'd probably find some other excuse to stop me. It eventually gets to the point where this is what I'm talking about, where you have to pick and choose where you invest your energy. Because when everything is being blockaded to you, you have to test it to make sure that it's not the thing that's going to be blockaded from you, that the demons aren't there in that modality. And if they are, you got to find that out real quick, and you got to step away once you see it. Otherwise, you are going to run out of gas before you get the job done. So you are here, Thich Nhat Hanh's philosophy basically means grow where you're planted, and so long as you are accomplishing your main objective, however big or small, then wherever the world has put you, however much reach it is
allowed you to get, that is not something that's in your control. What is in your control is that you still accomplish whatever mission you have. But let's say you're the King of Kings like Jesus. They crucified him on the cross, right? And let's say that you have capacities that surpass every other human being on the face of the planet in almost every facet. But you're made to live as a pauper because that's what the world will let you do. Won't let you do anything more. Then so be it. It is an egregious waste of resources, as I've said. But you're still accomplishing the mission. So be supremely unbothered. Accept that you are here, where you are. Do whatever you can to get your mission done. Because I guarantee you, you can still accomplish it. The meaning of life, as I've said many a time, and it surprises people because they're like, it's really that simple? It's one word. Love. The meaning of life is love. What is love, baby? Don't hurt me. Now, what is love? The Catholic definition of love is to will the good of the other. You can do that wherever you are, whatever position in which you find yourself. And it'll make the world a better place. Whether you're a profound ripple or you're a tidal wave, it will have an effect. So, don't allow yourself to get too much in your own head, to get over anxious by thinking too much into the future, to get regretful and depressed by thinking too much in the past. But be where you are. In the present, you are here. Be supremely unbothered and accomplish the mission. Amen? That's what I got for you today. Love y'all. Peace. We all seek to be understood. Welcome to day 220 until I am a YouTube millionaire. I was watching a channel earlier, about an hour ago, a video that this channel just posted. The channel's name is Dear Dia. The young lady that runs the channel is probably 16 or 17 years old, and she's a very bright young lady. And she was talking about how people pour their hearts out to her and seek her advice and her guidance when she doesn't really know quite what's going on herself, being as young as she is, and she doesn't get any guidance back from them. The thing is, we all seek to be understood, and at the same time, we all seek guidance. We all seek to find somebody who isn't simply shooting in the dark or punching in the dark because we're winging it. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know where we're going in life, aside from a couple foundational truths that our ancestors tried to give to us so that we would hold on to them and use them, because they're so hard to find and so hard to rediscover if you lose them. Well, she's a very bright woman, and this is really the crux behind the whole study of psychology with which to begin. It's why that realm of study even exists. It's why people go to psychologists to get answers, because they have a higher processing mind, a better processing mind, that hopefully will be able to broach topics a little bit deeper, a little bit more richly than they can.
Unfortunately, that is where the loneliness comes from those brainy people. It is important to have the self-awareness to see that. If nobody else has the answers, it's because you're the one that's finding them. That's what it comes down to. If you have nobody to turn to, it's because you're the one that everybody else turns to. If you don't know the answer, then probably no one else does, or near enough. So take that mantle. Do not be afraid to misstep, to make a mistake, to misjudge, to trip up every once in a while. Well, maybe more than every once in a while, maybe almost the majority of the time. Because frankly, you're treading new ground for everyone else. They don't know which way to go either. So I say to people like that, like dear Dia, very bright young lady, and other individuals like her, you're probably going to have a lot of difficulty finding people that have a better understanding than you. You will. It takes a tremendous amount of wherewithal, resolve, and frankly, intelligence to, at your age, and essentially single-handedly, build a YouTube channel the way you have. You've got almost 14,000 subscribers. That's insane. That is utterly insane. And to start at your age, not only is it very difficult, but the exponential growth that you will see if you continue to post is going to be utterly massive. You're going to be a multi-millionaire in the future. Multi-millionaire. As long as you don't just throw this away, because this is a platform that'll last forever, so long as YouTube doesn't delete your channel. So you're the one that has those answers. You're the one that will therefore be the misunderstood nearly perpetually. And there will only be a handful of people that will ever be able to understand you. And when you find them, you need to make sure that you hold on to them as tightly as you can. Because frankly, family doesn't have to be blood. That's where marriage comes in. You become of one flesh, even if you are of different blood. How interesting is that, huh? Rarefied individuals, especially in that regard, which is the one that we most emphasize in our world because it's what has gotten us everything that we have, really, have to cast a very wide net. I've said that many a time, and it bears repeating. So don't fault your friends for not being able to give you guidance. It's not their fault that they don't have as much horsepower as you. It's the power with which they were born. And I'm sure if they're your friends, it's probably pretty significant, just not as significant as yours. That's just the way it is. And you will see when you find somebody in your life that finally understands you, just how little physical appearance really matters to you. Because they're going to give you everything that you've wanted and needed all your life. Maybe that'll happen in 10 years for you. Maybe it'll happen in 40, I don't know. But when it does happen, you'll know. And you better make the best life possible with them. All right. Everybody seeks to be understood. Love you all, guys. Peace.
Good morning, guys. We do not have time to not say what we mean to say. Welcome to day 222 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. I was just watching a video, one that my girlfriend sent me, by Dr. Maloney, where he was discussing with a pastor who had just been diagnosed with terminal brain C-word. I can't say that word because YouTube censors it very, very strictly. And he had 5 to 7 years left after he got the surgery to get the main tumor out. And the words of advice that Dr. Maloney had for the guy who knew the art of passing away well, and that was actually one of the primary things that Dr. Maloney brought up. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. The art of dying well starts with living well. To live a life that you can go to your dying day and go without regrets and with a certain sense of honor and pride. The proper type of pride. Not pride in puffing up your chest and standing over everyone else, but pride in that you did the right thing by them. And the best words of advice he had for him, Dr. Maloney, because according to what he was talking about in that episode, he had experienced many of his family members that had passed away, friends as well who had passed away by that same type of thing, the C word, was leave love behind for your children as best you possibly can. That means let them see you love your wife intensely. That doesn't mean like show them sexually lewd things or things like that. No, it means show them the true depth of how much you love your wife and spend full quality time, laser focus with each one of his children. He had 3 of them, one's 16, 13, and 11. All very intelligent and all knowing what's about to happen in a few years' time. And then part of that is, again, why I make these videos. Communication is everything. There is so much wisdom that even the dullest of you out there has that will be lost when you pass away. Experiences that you've had in your lives and the way you reacted to those experiences that nobody else can ever see again, and perhaps will never experience again. Perhaps we'll never know, because you are uniquely you. Who you are and what you are is that story. How you reacted to those experiences, which is how you loved, which is the meaning of life, love. And part of what he told this pastor who had brain C-word was to leave video behind, whether he recorded it once a month or once a year or some other frequency. He only said those 2. But a guy like that could leave such a profound effect on the world.
by starting, let's say, a YouTube channel where he talks about brain C word, assuming YouTube does not throttle his channel for saying that word, and about how his life is affected and what he's trying to leave behind. There are many aspects to this that are immeasurable for him right now. The first one is, in a few years' time, we may have advanced our medical technology enough to where we find the cure to the C word. Through fembendazole, CRISPR, gene editing, which is CRISPR, organ print, 3D printing, or anything else. Also, such a channel will garner huge amounts of sympathy and huge amounts of, well, frankly, an audience is what it comes down to. And with an audience, I'm going to be blunt here, comes a lot of views, therefore a lot of money, and therefore by that virtue itself, he is fixing this ill of the world, because that allocation of resources he can put into his church, he can put into C-word research, and he's going to find other people who are going to have eyes on his particular problem that will be able to bring new light to the situation. Not just money, but experience and expertise, intelligence, wisdom. There are so many immeasurable things that happen when you allow yourself to live and pass away well. It is a ripple effect that we just cannot see all the consequences of in our limited lives. That is a legacy of infinite profundity, and one that he has set up to live to its fullest for himself, his family, God, and everyone else. So when I say to you, communication is everything. We are social creatures. It's what we're built to do. Get past your anxiety and just say what you mean to say. As John Mayer says in that famous song. It will heal all the world's ills. Sometimes that requires you to say the quiet part out loud and at least initially be ostracized. Other times it simply requires you to speak your life experiences. And other times it requires you to duke it out with demons on a day-to-day basis, to your doom or theirs or both. But say what you mean to say. Don't hide anything. Communicate and die well. Love y'all. Peace. Do we even have a civilization anymore? Welcome to day 223 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. So I was thinking more on what recently happened the last couple days with things that President Trump has said on the Epstein client list. And now he's backtracked so much about it. And I'll be real with you. He betrayed Everyone. Even left-wing news outlets like MSNBC and CNN are saying, are you fucking kidding me on this? So, there's multiple aspects to this. It seems abundantly clear to me, and I think that's one of the reasons it was put in this situation where everybody could see all the intricacies of it. That the president is in some way, shape, or form under duress. I don't even necessarily think it's because he's on the list. He might be in some tangential way, some way that isn't incriminating. But I think it's something else. In his journey to become the president and rectify the fraud that happened in 2020, these parasites, these demonic parasites, sought to unalive him twice and almost succeeded. They left the door open for some doofus to do what they did in Butler, Pennsylvania. And it was a similar situation on his own golf course, the president's own golf course. I don't think that it's because he's on the list in any incriminating way. I think it's because these demonic parasites are so pervasive and so powerful even now that they will do, and this is why he has Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his team, so that you guys can see this poignantly. They will do what they did to John F. Kennedy, to the president. 3 people, 3 groups of people were in on the John F. Kennedy unaliving back in 1963, is that what it was? The mob, the CIA, and Mossad. The Epstein client list was in some way, shape, or form meant to be a giant blackmail pot repository, right? It is not necessarily that President Trump is not the most powerful person in the world. He is the most powerful person in the world. But you have to understand the humongous non-linearity, dislinearity, or the word that they use in military is, I'm trying to think of it exactly. It's not equal forces opposing one another, and not equal positions. When your enemy operates in the dark, which ours does, it's a demon or a group of demons, and they may be human, they may look human, but they're demons. When they are party to attempting to unalive a president or a presidential candidate like this, just like they did with John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy Sr. I bet what happened was President Trump said, let me live and I'll forget about the Epstein list, so that he could get a lot of other stuff done. Because he's had 78 years to build his life and his empire, but one well-placed bullet could take him away completely. And he might be 78 years old right now, but there's still a lot of stuff he can do in his life. It's much easier to destroy, maybe 7 to 10 times easier, just using that as a rough estimate, than it is to build. President Trump has been building stuff his whole frickin' life. One well-placed bullet will take him out. One. So he can't release it. And I think everybody in his orbit knows that too. But I will tell you this. The very purpose of civilization itself is to provide a safe environment for the raising of children. And if we can't even do that, then what are we trying to save anyway? The whole system needs to come down. The whole thing. And he's 78 years old. He could easily say exactly what I told you right here on this video. In an interview, maybe on Joe Rogan or something. Say, yeah, the demons were going to unalive me. So I had to make a deal, a Faustian bargain, in order to get to this position. He could literally say that, word for word, basically everything that I said here in this video. And then he could just, on that show, say to everybody, you know what, fuck it. I'm 78. Pam, go ahead. Release the whole damn client list. But then guess what they'll do? What they did to John F. Kennedy's family. It wasn't just John F. Kennedy. It was also Robert F. Kennedy. And many of his other family members that most people don't know about. They'll take away his legacy as best they possibly can. And this is why everybody needs to have their eyes on his family so they know what's going on. Because it will not be hidden. These demons, they are demons. Make no bones about it. Can only thrive in the dark. If you can see proof positive what they're doing, you might not be able to point out where they are. But you'll be able to see generally. And those institutions can be done away with entirely, such as the FBI and the CIA. They should have been done away with entirely the moment President Trump got into office, but that's beside the point, at least right now. So yeah, he can do that. It would be a sacrifice not just of himself, but perhaps of a lot of his family members. Family members that didn't want him to do this to begin with. Family members that were telling him, don't run again. Because they wanted to live. They know the deep, dark, pure, parasitic evil that we are facing. It is a satanic pedophile ring that has been in this world, on this world, for 8,000 plus years. They're parasites. And they will not let go. They will not let go. Even though everybody is in unity saying, get the fuck out. If they do, they die. So they won't. This is huge. You have to understand something very critical I said here. The very purpose of civilization itself is to provide a safe environment for raising children. And if we don't have that, what do we have? Choice is yours, Mr. President. I'm sorry you're in this position. But maybe it'll work out better than you think. Love y'all. Peace.
how am I so supremely unbothered by what is happening with the Epstein nonsense? Welcome to day 224 and telling me YouTube millionaire. Well, as I've stated before, it's the Stoic philosophy that honestly kind of comes naturally to me at this point. It didn't before. I had to be beaten really hard to get into this position of Stoicism coming naturally to me, but it does now. It just reaffirms stuff that I already knew, that the satanic bell ring really does exist, for one, that it is really pervasive as much as I thought it was, and the only thing here that really matters necessarily is that it is getting to the lowest common denominator, to where even the layman or below would be able to see it and not ignore it. Because even CNN and MSNBC are like, are you seriously not going to pursue this? But it reaffirmed to me exactly what I already knew, that I, as a singular individual, do not have any power to change what's happening. The only thing that I can do is what I'm doing right here. Tell you guys about my personal perspectives on it, and live my life, my personal life, the best I can. Where you lose your power as an individual is when you decide to instead say it doesn't matter, so I might as well just take what I want for myself. That is where you allow this nefarious dark force to project upon you, and you become it yourself. No matter how small your circle is, you still have an effect. That is a ripple. You are a being that exists with free will and consciousness. Faith of a mustard seed. It's tied to that. Well, I have absolutely no power to affect what happens in the halls of the White House outside of this venue right here, because nobody listens to me, aside from my girlfriend and a handful of other people. And that's the point I'm getting to. I still have an effect. I cannot touch the mind and the heart of President Trump. It's disgusting. The level of betrayal there that was carried out by people that we were supposed to be able to trust. At least if there was or were anybody that we could trust that went into our halls of government, it would be them. As vetted as they are, as tested as they are, as proven through the crucible of their past as they are. Even that was not enough. So I can't change what's happening there. I remain supremely unbothered because it's in the hands of God. The issue here is where, if even in my own life, these things come back to blow back on me, as Dr. Ron Paul used the term, and my family and my friends, and affect my life personally, even to my own unaliving in some way, then that is something I must attack with all my power. And it threatens to. Because if we can't even protect our children, as I've said many a time already, we don't have a civilization. We don't have a country. We don't have laws. It's all just a facade. If it ever wasn't. I can't have the ear of President Trump. But this is unacceptable. Unacceptable on every single perceivable level. Unacceptable. He would know that children are like diamonds. The more of them you have, the wealthier you actually are. The money you have doesn't really matter. It's the children, your family, for a multitude of reasons. He has 6 children of his own and then several grandchildren. But I have no power to affect that. My question then becomes, where I am in my life, is if I cannot affect that, and it eventually gets so bad that it threatens to take me out in my own life, which frankly it already has in some way, but if it is right in front of me, gonna take my life, or family members, then when does God step in and say, this guy can't do anything else to fix this, and therefore I gotta take him out right now? That's the question here. That's what the rapture is. The rapture being where you and I, those people with good hearts, decent enough anyway, are trying to fix the world, and we literally cannot do anything else. Our time is going to end right here. That's what the rapture is. I can't do anything to change what President Trump is doing. Or Kash Patel. Or Dan Bongino. Or Pam Bondi. Any of them. But it does affect me. Think about it, guys. It is a Stoic philosophy to be supremely unbothered by those things over which you have no control. And that thing which you have the most control over is how you react to your situation. And that reaction itself is based upon the pattern of who you are fundamentally. Whether you've had past lives or not. It is the signal in the noise that is your soul. Who you are. And you'll either react well or you won't. Every step of the way, we always have a choice. It's our pattern, our past, that gives us a predisposition to go in one way or another. But we always have a choice to fix things. Just as well, we always have a choice to break things. There is nothing outside of this. If we don't push now, if we submit to the chaos, the end state of that is infinite entropy, non-existence entirely. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no purpose to adding to that. We don't have a country. We don't have a civilization. All right, guys. I don't mean to be depressing or anything, but I just want you to keep your minds and hearts tempered, focused on the things that matter, focused on the things over which you have an effect. So as painful and sad and tragic and horrible as this is, make sure that you're cultivating your personal relationships, because that's going to be the last bastion that you have, the last place you can go to truly matter. All right. Love you all. Peace. The unobserved life is not worth living. Welcome to day 225 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. I believe this quote is attributed to a one Socrates. If I'm not mistaken. It's either him or Aristotle. If you're curious which of the philosophers Socrates is, it's easy to get them mixed up if you know of them in the past. He's the one that's got the pug-like face, the Chinese pug face. He's got a smushed face like this. You know, when you see him in his statues, that's what he looks like. Seneca is the guy who looks like a Stefan Molyneux with hair. And Aristotle, I don't remember exactly how he looks. But anyways, the unobserved life, it's not worth living. It is so true. And part of the reason why I make these videos. So that the experiences I have in my life are not only documented and observed, but the lessons that I glean from them, others can glean from them as well, as if they're case studies for different aspects of their own lives, different things that they've gone through. And while they might not be precisely the same, they are perhaps near enough to give genuine, positive enrichment, enlightenment as to the right path or the most effective path. It is, in a way, much like Jesus speaking in parables. The parables, since they were not experiences that Jesus necessarily lived in his life that he had back in 2,000 years ago, maybe in some other timeline he had experienced those things directly himself, but it was a useful surrogate for not actually having experienced those things himself. And therefore, the parables being life lessons, things, life experiences, and stories, those to whom he told them, they could adapt them as best as they needed for their own personal lives. This ties into a student that I used to tutor back in Dayton, Ohio. This student was, I was doing it in varsitytutors.com. Very bright kid. Was very good with math and all that stuff, but he wasn't doing that well, not because he lacked capacity, but because he lacked a specific reason for doing it. So he didn't know why he should write essays or write journals. He didn't know why he should do mathematical equations and stuff. But what he did need was, more than anything else, a father figure, a mentor. And that, I think, was the most poignant thing that I provided. I usually came into the tutoring sessions wearing my military ABUs, because the tutoring sessions usually occurred after I got done on my active duty day.
Sometimes I met him in person, sometimes we did it digitally. And that was the positive influence that he needed. Nevertheless, because he didn't have enough framework from which to draw, enough of a body of work from which to draw, it really hampered his achievement. His father was no slouch, is no slouch. His father is an engineer himself. Unfortunately, he and his wife ended up getting divorced after the fact. But nevertheless, he inherited good genes from that guy, as well as his wife. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. It was kind of interesting, actually. It never was an issue. Never was forced on me or anybody else that came to visit. From what I could tell, that's what they were. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. But he didn't know the purpose for what he was doing. Therefore, he did not achieve as much as he could have. So I record these videos because it makes it a little bit more black and white for people. The more stark the juxtaposition, the more you realize if something can get you emotionally and purposefully piqued, like you can see there is a purpose for doing X, Y, and Z, maybe even going down to your very genetic imperative, then you're going to do it. Now, for this young kid, this child, he was 8 years old, he didn't know about the wars that were going on in the Middle East, or he knew about it tangentially, but he didn't know the full depth of it. He didn't know about the brain drain that was happening in the Western world, not just from the lack of birth rate, but also because other countries were cannibalizing the United States and a lot of the other Western countries of their intelligentsia. He didn't know how critically important it was for him to succeed. Therefore, he didn't put as much effort into it. It harkens back to my own life. I'll give you a rather plebeian workaday example. Brushing your teeth. I did not brush my teeth as much as I should have because I didn't have a reason to do it. My teeth were healthy enough. I was taking good care of them otherwise. I wasn't going to lose them. So I didn't brush them very often. And then I got a girlfriend. And my mother told me on a consistent basis that my breath was starting to stink. So I started brushing my teeth. I had a black and white purpose for doing it. The observed life gives you that black and white purpose. The observed life allows you to explain your decisions. The observed life is the only one that can give anybody any vector by which to travel. Because we're all shooting in the dark. None of us really knows what the fuck we're doing. We do our very best. And if you're not giving anybody any signal whatsoever, then that is a life that is not worth living. You have to give people a signal. We don't know what we're doing. So the best way to do that, the most profound way to do that, because we have such a short history as the human species, only 6,000 years of documented history, and about 100,000 years of being in existence at all, 40,000 years of paintings and stuff, and cave walls and all that. But the amount of history we have behind us sounds like a lot to us because we don't live very long, but it's not. It is not that much time. So we need to make the most effective use of it that we possibly can. So 6,000 years by itself is 6,000 years, but compounded upon 8 billion different consciences on this planet, 6,000 times 8 billion consciences, gives you that much more of a profound understanding. Cast in the backdrop of your own personal experiences in your life. It magnifies, amplifies, augments. Be a part of that. It's hugely important. So, listen to what Socrates said. I believe it was him that said that. Socrates. I'm just doing that to be silly. And guess what? The more silly I am, the more goofy I am, the more jokes I make, the easier it's going to be for you to remember, because you're tying it to a story. And we remember stories. This is why Jesus spoke in parables. We remember stories more effectively than we remember almost anything else. So, observe your life. It doesn't have to be much. Just do something. Write a journal. If you don't want to make these videos, write a journal. It ain't hard. That's one of the main things I had this child do back in Dayton, Ohio. And I think it had an effect. But I wish I would have had more time with him. All right. That's all I got for today, guys. Love y'all. Peace. Not all social engineering is bad. Welcome to day 227 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. Now, I've talked about this many a time. I've even written some essays about it back several years ago. But essentially all the different concepts that I bring up here are in some way a form of positive social engineering. It really depends on the intent of the individuals, the objectives of the individuals behind the social engineering, what the end consequence of it is. So, for example, if you carry out a time machine manipulation that causes a subtle change to a particular line of time that leads to a Mandela effect, and that Mandela effect is meant to more cohere your past beliefs with future objective reality, then there's nothing wrong with that. Let's say, as an example, that in some previous timeline, and you can do this with the past because we don't live in the past, it's much easier to Mandela effect the past than it is the present. Let's say in some previous line of time, Jesus didn't actually exist or didn't actually die on the cross. If we have a time machine, we can go back in time and we can make somebody do that. And there's no greater person to do that than the man himself, the one carrying out the whole process of saving humanity from the mess that we're in. It is another means by which you can socially engineer the whole of your civilization species in a positive way. If the end goal of said social engineering is to destroy everything, to cause infinite entropy, and you can actually see that consequence. So intent aligns with the objective reality if said individuals are allowed to carry out their manipulations, their social engineering, then obviously that's nefarious and bad. You don't want that. What's going on with Epstein? I believe, and I believe this from the start, is intentional Streisand effect. Intentional Streisand effect being a form of contemporary social engineering. You get everybody to pay attention to the Epstein issue. The client list, the backtracking, the betrayal, the infighting on the right, and you'll even get the left media outlets to cover it. Tim Pool is actually discussing this right now. He's simply saying in words that I was trying to avoid because I was actually playing into the Streisand effect myself, that this is in fact what it is. So ordering is the sister of timing. He says this on his video, then I come to the conclusion that, okay, I can say something on mine, even though I have a much smaller picture, a much smaller reach than he does. But quality over quantity. It could very well be that within those 20 to 50 people that watch my videos on a regular basis, one of them is the vice president, and I don't even know it because they don't comment, or they don't subscribe, or anything like that. This is out there as the signal in the noise. Not all social engineering is bad. And considering this is basically a crux, a critical component to the whole of our civilization, if we can't protect our children, then we don't have one. Then everybody needs to be in unity, left and right, Democrat, Republican, racist and non-racist, just saying that, against abuse of children. Everybody must be in unity against that. So the Streisand effect makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. Giggity. I knew this from the start. I was just playing my part. And take that to heart. Don't be a tart. Or Paul Blart. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. No, but in all seriousness. And that's why endurance is so hugely important. Because while you can do the Mandela effect in the past, you can do it in the present as well. It's just very, very, very much harder. Because people are actually living in this point of reference. The farther back in time something is, the easier it is to change things around, so long as people aren't focusing on that one thing or don't have direct objective evidence of it. Now, with a time machine, you could go back there and take a look, see what happened. With writing, you can make that writing true. This is why and how, when you write something, it cannot be undone. It is written, therefore. So that means even if in your timeline it is not the case, somebody is going to go back who believes in it and make it the case. That's the whole foundational idea behind my novel series. The scientist looks back into the past and sees that Jesus did not exist. So he makes him exist. And makes people's belief collide with reality. Because these are people who deserve to win. That's how you make justice. So in our own modern time, the way you make justice is to foist a Streisand effect upon the population. If we can't protect children, then we can't protect anything. If we can't protect children, we have no civilization. This is everything. Everything. And everything that I've said about myself, about wanting a huge number of children, children being like diamonds, the more of them, the wealthier you actually are, all of that would be for naught if I didn't actually carry out my actions to prove it. So I exist in this sort of holding pattern in my own personal life because I know there's a lot of other stuff going on right now. Whether I have a place in it or not, I know I will at some point. Maybe past the Great Divide where we all go up to Eden, or maybe in this world as it stands, I don't know, but one way or another, there you go. This is everything, guys. If we can't protect our children, then what are we even having a civilization for? Can we even say we have one? So not all social engineering is bad. It depends on the intent of the individuals and whether or not they actually follow the objective consequences of their actions. And they can see that with perfect fidelity with a time machine. You go into the past, you make something align with what is written to be real, and then you look into the future and see the consequences of said action. If the consequences align with your intent, then there you go. All right, that's all I got for today, guys. Not all social engineering is bad. Love y'all. Peace. Or as the Illuminati do it, peace. The world owes you nothing, so expect nothing. Welcome to day 228 until I'm a YouTube millionaire. I was looking through some of my old journal entries from a long time ago, back in, this one was 2019. It was when I was in the depths of my cubicle torture. When I was in Dayton, Ohio. After having been a pilot in the Air Force for 4 years, with the goals of becoming an astronaut and getting to space, and a flight test engineer and all that stuff, and having been fully disqualified as a pilot and then thrown in some backwater in my military outfit. It's an agency that doesn't even exist anymore that I was put into. It was called SIMAF, Simulation and Analysis Facility. But when the COVID nonsense came about and our leadership looked through all the numbers to see what was needed and what wasn't, it turns out that SIMAF was never a required agency to begin with. It was just fluff. So it got entirely rid of it. So I was abandoned and forgotten when I was in there. But if you truly believe what you are told in your religious and spiritual teachings as a Christian, you understand that the world owes you nothing, therefore expect nothing, because it is run by the devil. In that light, that will allow you to survive. It will allow you to make it through that mess. It was the juxtaposition, the black and white, of having such lofty goals to be resigned to being entirely wasted in my military career that really would have set somebody off outside of that, where expectations were so unbelievably contrary to reality. Just like me being a marathon runner in my past and now barely being able to walk is a stark juxtaposition. My life has been a legacy of black and white, so that if I'm ever made known by the public, and there comes the frustration, it will be black and white to people, and they will be able to see it. They won't be able to ignore it. It's real. But then you have people in your own life even. I have family members that still think I'm crazy and I speak nonsense. Family members that, despite everything that I've gone through, still don't believe in God themselves. Either they're not listening or they just don't care. Could be a combination of the two. So, the world owes you nothing, expect nothing. God owes you one thing, therefore expect that one thing. The fulfillment of a promise that if you follow His Son, He will give you grace and entry into eternity. But the world owes you nothing. So it will as best it can torture you. Especially if you continue to try to be good when everything around you is falling apart. This harkens back to what I was talking about when I bought my properties on Smithville Avenue in Dayton, Ohio, Kettering. I was working on the gardening alongside my property manager, Stephen, and I saw in his eyes, kind of quietly taken aback that I was not letting the world collapsing around me stop me from doing what I was doing. I was basically quietly walking through a storm and just carrying out what I was doing. He would have done the same, but I think he was pretty surprised that I was so easily doing it. What are you supposed to do? Just lay down and die? The world owes you nothing, so expect nothing. I had that repeated. I wrote it down. Like Bart Simpson writing on that chalkboard on the beginning scene of The Simpsons every time you see a new episode. The world owes you nothing, so expect nothing. I wrote it like 10 times. And God owes you only one thing: fulfillment of a promise. I'll take that one thing being owed as opposed to entropy and living within this mess. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys this video, post it in just a little bit, and I think I'll also do a compilation for y'all. Try something a little different. Maybe give you a mashup of like 10 or 15 of my video essays. But here you go, guys. Remember that one of those many mantras that you can say to yourself that will have a profoundly positive effect. The world owes you nothing, so expect nothing. And anything you get over the top of that is simply icing on the cake. Just like a world where morality is not a disadvantage is worth fighting and, if need be, dying for. You only get that if you go the path where you have that promise. That's the only path that gives that to you. But in this world, you'll be backstabbed because the world owes you nothing. So expect nothing. Amen? Love y'all. Peace.